Hi guys, and welcome back to another video. For today's video, I'm going to be doing a side-by-side comparison of Christian Light Education Math Grade 3 and the Generations Math 3. So I'm going to grab the camera, we're going to go sit down together, and we're going to flip through them, talk about them, pros and cons, differences, learning styles, and everything about these two curriculums. And I can't wait to chat with you guys about it. I'm also, at the end of the video, I'll come back and give my personal kind of opinions, my personal experiences, and thoughts on the two curriculums. With all that being said, let's go ahead and get into today's video. Alright, so I have our two math curriculums that we're going to be looking at today. We have Math 3 and Christian Light Education 3. I thought I would go ahead and start off with a quick overview of the two curriculums when it comes to their looks. So that's what we're going to be starting off with today. Generations Math 3 is definitely a newer, brighter, definitely more modern designed curriculum. One thing that drew me to this curriculum when I first chose it is it's created from a biblical worldview that does such a beautiful job in weaving God's truth into every lesson. You'll often find short devotional style thoughts or scripture verses tied into every single concept, reminding children that God is a God of order, logic, and beauty, even with the numbers. And I loved this approach so much when it comes to the Generations curriculum. Now, the Generations curriculum, as I already mentioned, does tend to be more modern and visually engaging. The pages are still clean, so it's not going to be overstimulating for little ones who do get distracted with a lot of the bright, fun, colorful images, but it is beautifully designed to where it can be also visually engaging. So it's really that perfect blend between it is clean, it is open and go, but it is more engaging than I would say a typical like black and white curriculum. So this would be a wonderful approach for children who might need a little bit of an encouragement to dive into math because it is so visually engaging and just beautifully designed. So that is a look at the style of the Generations Math 3. So the Christian Light Education Math 3, or more commonly known as CLE, takes a more traditional approach. This is a published curriculum that has been around for decades. If you guys are new around here, I am a second generation homeschooler, and this is the same curriculum that I kind of grew up on as well. So I have a lot of personal experience just using this for myself as a child and then teaching my own little ones. And this has definitely been one of those curriculums that's truly stood the test of time. It's known for being thorough, incremental, and mastery based. I do want to do a designated video, and I want to sit down and ask my mom maybe the top 10 questions about CLE, why she loved it, and then why I love it, and see if our answers vary at all. I think that would be a really fun video to make because I know her reasons for using it might have been different than mine and vice versa. It'd just be a fun discussion to have with her. So I might try to do a designated video on it because I think it'd be so much fun. Anyway, CLE focuses heavily on review. Every single lesson builds gently and includes plenty of practice, which is one of the reasons why I was drawn to this curriculum as well. It's simple, black and white, and very straightforward, and there's no distractions on the page. It's just clear teaching and steady progress. So if you do have little ones that do tend to wonder and kind of like drift off to just stare at the pictures, this would be a good option. I know some learners are visual, so this would be good, but some learners might get distracted easily from pictures, so this would be great for that. So those are the differences between the actual look and feel of Generations Math 3 and the CLE Math 3. So now I'm going to go ahead and dive into the learning style differences. Now this is where the biggest difference shows up when it comes to comparing the two curriculums here. So if your child thrives on structure, consistency, Christian Light Education is really going to feel like a warm blanket almost because every single day follows an extremely predictable pattern. The lessons, at least the new part of the lessons, are pretty short and they're broken down into manageable chunks, and there's a lot of built-in review. So for example, your actual new lesson for the day is fairly simple. Like for this one here, you've got one page and a little section up here where you practice. That's all of your new lesson. Everything else for the day is going to be review. It looks like a lot because it is a lot. And so that could be a pro and con as well, depending on if your little ones like math or if they don't have that long attention span, but the actual new part is very short, so it is broken down into manageable chunks. Something that I have talked to other mamas about that do CLE but might not love the long lessons is to break it up to where the first part of the day, say you start with a new lesson, and then you can jump into the We Remember section later in the day, so you don't have to do it all in one setting. And they of course have the mental math sections and things like that. But I've heard a lot of other mamas say that the way they break up their CLE lessons to make it not as long is to do as much mental math as possible with it. So for example, this right here, your little ones could just do this in their head and read the answers out loud to the teacher without actually having to write it out. So I know a lot of people do that. This would be something that they write out, of course, but this they can just point and go 3, 6, 9, 12, and then just circle multiples of 3, but they could just do that orally. So I know a lot of mamas will break up the lesson, and that cuts down the lesson quite a bit when it comes to implementing more of the mental side of things. So this curriculum really can be wonderful for kids who need repetition and routine. And what I found is the format of this curriculum really builds confidence because they really know what to expect every single day. There's really not going to be a lot of unknowns. It's very independent friendly too. So this is the one, I know this is one of the reasons why my mom used this growing up as well, is because if you are teaching multiple ages and you really need your third grader to start working more on their own when it comes to independent work, this would be a great option. But on the other hand, if your child does need visual engagement, so color, variety, storytelling, they might get bored really easily with something that has the same thing every day or the same style, and they might want something different. Like they might not want to know what to expect every single day. Then Generations Math 3 would definitely be a better fit. It is, as I already mentioned, is that bright, cheerful, and conversational aspect that I know a lot of mamas love as well. So the lessons often feel like, the best way I can describe Generations is it feels like mama sitting beside the child and explaining concepts in a very gentle but real life and scriptural based approach, which is why I also love this curriculum. So comparing the actual lesson flow and structure, I wanted to take a look at how a typical lesson feels in both so you get an idea of what your day-to-day kind of material that you cover might look like. In Christian Light Education Math 3, each light unit, which they're these things right here, they're thin little light units, but each light unit has about 16 lessons plus a quiz and a test. The lessons are very similar every single day, and they follow the same rhythm every single day, which is what I was mentioning before as it being wonderful for if your child thrives off of consistency. So they're going to start off with your new concept, then they're going to have a review of old concepts. You're always going to have word problems, and you're also going to be having speed drills or fact practice, which is your fact focus down here, and then of course your mental math, and a lot of it is review based. You're going to see topics like place value, regrouping, fractions, money, time, measurements, really all introduced very slowly and reinforced constantly and mastered before moving on. So if your little one really needs a lot of consistent practice to master math concepts, then this would be a great option as well. In Generations Math 3, the lessons contain a little bit more of a richer concept. So each lesson, let me go back here really quick to a beginning of a lesson, sorry. So each lesson is going to have a teaching section, examples, and then student practice. And the teaching style is definitely going to be more conversational, almost like a mini math story. So if you are familiar with the master books, Math Lessons Through a Living Education, this is very, very similar to that. Only not quite as much storytelling aspects, but it is still like a living math program from what I've been able to gather from it so far. And Generations Math 3, as I already mentioned as well, is there's often a biblical tie-in and or a real life connection. So you're going to be using math to understand God's creation or to solve a practical household item task, which I also really love about this curriculum. I love also how Generations connects math to real life, which makes it very meaningful. So speaking of teacher involvement, I'm going to go ahead and compare the two as far as teacher intensity, what it requires from you as the mama. So if you are a busy mama teaching several grades, this might be the deciding factor between the two curriculums. Christian Light Education is really designed to grow independence. So once your child learns the flow, they can usually complete lessons with very little help in my personal experience, especially by the time they get to third grade. We're talking about third grade here, because by the time you go through the new concepts, there's so much mastery and review that there's very little help needed apart from maybe the 5 to 10 minutes of teaching them that new concept. The teacher guide that goes with Math 3 is optional. However, I find it to be very handy for answer keys and quick teaching notes. So I actually do highly recommend purchasing the teacher manual for this. I think I have it right over here. Let me see if I can find it. I think it's this one right here. Yes, it is this guide right here. And just so you can get an idea of what the guides look like, let me see if I can find where we are at now. You would have the lesson 3, and it's going to tell you as a teacher some things to prepare, like prepare the flashcards, the drills you'll be doing for the day, working the light unit, and then all of your answers at a glance. It's just nice to have on hand. So I highly recommend the actual teacher guide. You'll be really, really happy that you purchased it when it comes to this program. So with Generations Math 3, you'll be more involved. It's definitely more teacher-led, especially at the beginning of every single lesson. It's definitely more teacher involved because you're really introduced through conversation or story-based examples. So this is going to be more teacher intensive, but I'm going to say something about teacher intensive curriculum that may or may not be a pro and a con. It depends on what you think of it. But I actually love this part. I've grown to switch my opinion on how teacher involvement or how teacher intensive things are. I've learned to switch my heart with it because I actually do like this part about this curriculum, because it gives you the chance as a mama it really gives you sweet moments of connection, like sitting side by side with your child, working through new ideas together. And it's not a set it and forget it type of program. If you are in a busy season of life, open and go, you have multiple students at the same time, you need independence, wonderful. But if you are a homeschool mama who you want a program that helps you be intentional to have moments of connection with your child, then this would be a beautiful option, because it is so mama-led or teacher-led, because you are discussing new concepts. You are discussing biblical scriptures, your biblical ideas, stories, devotionals, thoughts. And so if you're looking for a more connection-based approach, then this is beautiful. And so the reason why I'm saying that is because I've kind of switched my tune a little bit. Even though I still need something open and go, I still think this concept is beautiful. So it's not always a con if something is teacher intensive, is what I'm trying to say. I know in the homeschool community, sometimes if it's too teacher intensive, and I'll be honest and say I have shared curriculums on my channel with it being too teacher intensive, and I'm not the one that's able to pull it off right now, and that still is kind of true. But I've switched it being like, it's actually a blessing to have something that does help you be intentional with your children. So that's kind of my thoughts on the teacher intensive part of the two curriculums. So moving on to the heart behind each program. Both of these curriculums are deeply rooted in Christian values, but in different ways. So Generations aims to delight children in learning. It reminds them that God is not just a God of truth, but of beauty. So the color, the illustrations, as I mentioned at the beginning of this part here, really everything is meant to inspire joy in the process of learning about numbers and God's creation. So Christian Light Education aims to train diligence and discipline. So it's simple, kind of straightforward, and helps children form steady habits of work and responsibility, which is another beautiful thing about this. And also, it's a beautiful thing about this too. There's so much beauty and scripture in this curriculum. So to compare the two in a very one sentence thing here, it would be, one feels like a gentler conversation like Generations, and the other feels like a very consistent, faithful rhythm. And in my opinion, when it comes to the heart behind each program, neither is better. at all, in my opinion. Because they just nurture different aspects of character. And I wanted to mention that, like, when it comes to comparing curriculum, sometimes I feel weird, you know, saying one is better than the other. But when it comes to the heart behind each thing, and they both had the Christian value, they're both beautiful. So they just nurture very different aspects of character. So again, a gentle conversation based, where you're learning about the beauty of God's creation and delighting in learning. And this one is diligence, discipline, to form those steady work habits and responsibility in children at a young age. So those are the differences, and in that aspect. So moving on to now the strengths and weaknesses of it. So let's talk about what each one does best and where it might fall short. So I'm going to do some pros and cons of both curriculum. Generations Math 3, talk about strengths real quick, which we've already kind of talked about, but we're going to kind of wrap everything up here in a little pretty bow. But it is beautiful. As I already mentioned, a colorful layout, conversational, relational teaching style, connects math to real life and scripture, and really does encourage joy in learning. With some weaknesses about this curriculum, and I'm gonna share this when I talk about my personal experience. So I'm not gonna say too much now, but I'm gonna say a little bit of it. But the weaknesses of this curriculum is that it starts with division. This definitely, as I already mentioned, requires more parent involvement. And as I also mentioned a few minutes ago, this is not necessarily a weakness, but I mention it in the little bit more of a con in case you are more open in style, you want to create independent learners, type homeschools. I'm throwing that in this part. And another weakness that I will say about this curriculum overall is it has much less built-in review. So some children might need to supplement or might need some extra practice pages when it comes to mastering concepts, because there's just not a lot of built-in review. It moves very, very quickly and advances very, very quickly. So with the Christian Light education, I am going to go ahead and go over some strengths and weaknesses with this curriculum. So to start off with the Christian Light education strengths, it's extremely solid, thorough foundation, gentle pacing with daily review, and it does foster independence and confidence, and it's very affordable. And as I mentioned before, it being a multi-generational thing that I've used in my life, it's very long proven. Like, it's a very it's withstood this test of time, I should say, with it being very, very sound. The weaknesses, in my opinion, it's black and white, so it is less visual engaging. However, as I already mentioned, that can be a pro and a con, but I did put it in the weaknesses just because we're comparing the two here. It can feel repetitive for creative or visual learners. This is why I also put it in weaknesses in comparison with this one, because this is going to be visually stimulating for your visual learners. This is not. This is going to feel definitely a struggle for if you do have that more creative visual learner. And this one does not connect lessons to faith quite as vividly as Generations. They're both rooted in biblical values. However, when it comes to integrating Bible with math, this is that curriculum for this. But this still has biblical concepts, and it still has your scripture, and it still has your story problems and character building morals, like high morals and things like that. But it doesn't exactly connect the daily lessons to faith quite as vividly as Generations Math 3. So those are some quick pros and cons of the two curriculums. So now that we've looked at the two, I'm going to go ahead and grab the camera, turn it back around, and we're going to talk about my personal experience using both of them and where we are at right now. So now to sit down and share with you guys my personal experiences of the said curriculums. With Generations Math 3, I'll be honest, I was really drawn into this right away when I did see just how beautiful, and it's bright and fun and colorful, interactive. But I think I was distracted by the shiny, bright, new, pretty thing that I did not realize that the very first lesson started out with division. Now, had I been more diligent in researching and in looking at the sample flip through pages online, I maybe should have paid attention more and would have been like, oh, we're not in division yet because we're just finishing up second grade. So that really threw me off. Again, that was my own fault for not looking at it better before purchasing. Anyway, so yes, I was distracted by how beautiful it was and did not realize that it was very, very advanced for third grade. They are assuming that, because the very first lesson here, they are assuming that you've already mastered multiplication and division in the second grade, which that's very high. Now, I used to think that, and I still do think, but I used to think that Christian Light Education, their curriculum was at least half a year to, if not a whole year, above grade level, because it's rigid and it is solid and sound, but it definitely is more rigid. And so I always took pride in the fact that we were doing a curriculum that was very advanced, and that if we jumped into a curriculum, any other curriculum, it would seem simple because this is so well and solid. So it really caught me off guard when I jumped into the 3rd grade and they're already assuming to do division. My son is doing the 4th grade Christian Light Education math, and he's just starting division. So that means, in my personal opinion, that Generations is almost 2 years above grade level. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just, for me, it really threw me off. So I'm going to be completely honest that we did this for one day. We only did this for one day before studying the book, because again, it didn't even register to me that there was division problems on the first page. And my daughter, she's now doing like finding the areas of like basic geometry, things like that. So she's doing that in her Christian Light Education program, but there's no, in here, it's just review. So they're assuming that this is all review concepts. So they're assuming that in the 2nd grade, you've already mastered all of these concepts, and that's just not the case, at least in the Christian Light Education. Now, if you did do Generations Math 2, then this will be a very seamless, beautiful transition. But just know that if you're jumping into Math 3, you will already need to know basic division, multiplication, everything like that. So just wanted to throw that out there. When it comes to the actual grade levels, is we only use this for a day before needing to switch back to Christian Light Education. So that was a look at my experience, one-day experience and personal opinion of Generations Math 3. Again, such a beautiful curriculum, and I have heard from quite a few of you mamas that you do have gifted learners where they really, really thrive with this curriculum, and that is incredible. So if you have used this curriculum and are using it and love it, keep on using it, because it is beautifully, beautifully done. We just need to make a switch because we hadn't mastered those concepts yet. So that's a long way to say that that's why we ended up jumping back into Christian Light Education, their Math 3. It only took about a week to get to us. Right now, she is ready for lesson 3 in Light Unit 303. My goal with the light units and my goal in pacing them is to try to be completely through to Light Unit 305, and then we'll take a little bit of a break before jumping back in. We don't take a long break, but I do like to have, especially that week before Christmas, and then we'll start back in like the beginning of January when it comes to that break. So I try to be completely finished with Light Unit 305 by the time we do that. So we have 2.5 more light units to finish before we go on winter break. So the pacing of it has been beautiful. They've been really thriving with it. And one thing I love about CLE's curriculum in general is because there is so much built-in review, and I talk about this curriculum a lot on my channel, and so you probably already know all this. But because there is so much built-in review, they really do master the concepts beautifully. And I just like all the review. I do like the consistency. My little ones know what to expect. They know that for the first 5 minutes, Mama's going to sit down and we're going to go over our new concept, and then they can be independent. And I think it gives them a big sense of pride when they do their independent work, and then Mama comes back and checks their work, and they see, you know, what they got right, what they got wrong, and things like that. And it builds their independence as well. But I will say, with independent work and independent learners, I would highly recommend checking the work as they're doing it, not necessarily as, but either right after. Because what I don't want to happen, because it has happened a few times where she might do a whole section. I'd be like, well, we forgot to pay attention if it was addition or subtraction, or oh, we forgot to carry, we forgot to borrow, and things like that. So when it comes to longer problems like this, I'll check every 2 or 3 that she does to make sure we're paying attention to seeing if it's addition and subtraction and division and things like that. So, but we are back to using that, and the only reason is this was just too far ahead from where we are right now. I think at the end of the day, if it wasn't for the fact that Generations was way above grade level as far as where we are at right now, I think that if I just had to pick the 2, so let's put aside the fact that it starts out with division and multiplication. Let's just put that aside and say when it comes to just the actual styles, if I wanted our math definitely to be more slower, intentional, relationship building, really full and rich with conversation. Generations would have been a beautiful fit. It has the biblical worldview, which I love, woven into every aspect of it. I will always love that aspect of this curriculum. But when life does feel full, and right now it really does, in the season of life, I just need more independence and independent learners. And that's where CLE has been a huge blessing for our family, and it has been such a gift because it really does keep us on track without me having to reinvent the wheel every single day. With something like this, because it's not consistent and because every single lesson is going to be different in its approach and how much teacher involvement it has, it's just doesn't leave me time and space to be more consistent in other areas I need to be. If you guys have been following me for a while, you know that I've been doing, still currently doing a lot of research with my kindergartner and her speech delay and processing. And we've integrated just a lot of beautiful different therapies and techniques here at home. And I'll share again in another video exactly all the cross-body exercises we're doing. One of you guys actually suggested, this is totally off topic, I'm sorry, but one of you guys suggested I forget what it was, but it's like the figure 8 drawing pads, and I forget where they're from. Actually, no, I have it. One second. I can't believe how completely off topic I am going, but this is just life right now. Anyway, one of you guys recommended the Diane Craft Right Brain Learning System. This is the writing 8 exercises for little ones that might have a processing delay, or really honestly any learning kind of like learning difficulties, especially with handwriting. One of you guys recommended this to me, and I can't thank you enough because I got it. I absolutely love it, and so does my little kindergartner. And I'll share this in an upcoming updated video when I talk to you guys about exactly what therapies I'm doing with her now. I'm integrating learning at home and what's making the most improvements, and I just love it. Anyways, I am saying all of that because this is why I really have to have that open and go, because I need to have time in my day to work with my other little ones with intentional therapies and things that I'm going to be honest just take a lot of time. And there's only one of me, and I only have so many hours a day in between all the homemaking things and other responsibilities. I have to pick and choose curriculum that fits that kind of style of life right now. Anyways, wrapping it up here, neither one of these curriculums is perfect. There is no such thing as a perfect curriculum. If you find a curriculum that your family absolutely loves and adores, I bet there would be one thing that you would probably change about it. It's like, there's not going to be ever a perfect curriculum per se, but these are they are beautiful. They are beautiful tools, and I can see how the Lord can use both of them in 2 totally different approaches and 2 totally different homeschool journeys, and I just think they're both lovely. Anyways, that was a look at the CLE Math 3 and then Generations Math 3. Again, both are beautiful tools. I hope you enjoyed watching this flip through. If you want me to compare any other curriculums, please let me know down below. Meanwhile, I do want to try to get one more Q&A video done because I have some just fun little questions to answer that you guys had asked me on my community tab. So I'm probably going to do one more Q&A video, and then I'm going to jump into some fun Christmas content in November. So gift guide videos, I love doing those. And I'm trying to do a lot more like small business highlights type videos. So I'm going to try to get those out for you guys in November as well, since it takes a little bit longer to get small business products in. So I'm excited to dive into some fun gift ideas and research for you guys. So that is what's coming up in the month of November. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, whatever you're doing, and God bless. Bye guys.